All right, welcome to another episode of the LogiCast. My name is BlankaKong. I'm joined by Mr. Esoteric Skills and Gunnar Eos. Today's episode is going to be a freeform one. We're just going to talk about Armored Core 6. So I know Gunnar Eos has beaten the game at least once. I know Mr. Esoteric is on his third playthrough, so he's beaten it twice. And I've beaten the game 3 times, and I've gotten all 3 endings. I will not discuss the ending for the third playthrough, just to save Esoteric the spoiler. But we'll talk about everything else as it pertains to Armored Core as a game, the boss battles, the arenas, the arena quests, the story, the characters, the graphics, the combat, everything, right? So I'll just start and I'll just gush about the game for a minute and I'll let you guys kind of jump in there, okay? So for me, this is like top 3 game of the year for me. So like right now it's Resident Evil 4, Armored Core 6, and I would argue not Breath of the Wild, Tears of the Kingdom. Those are like the 3 games that I've really enjoyed. Even though I didn't finish Tears of the Kingdom, I do plan to go back to it and finish it, but I know that like once I get my feet wet into that game again, I'm gonna get lost in it all over again. But yeah, those are the 3 games that I've really enjoyed this year. And the year's still going, so we still got stuff coming out. Not much though, in my opinion. I mean, there's Spider-Man 2 and some other things, but like, I'm gonna be honest, and I know I'm part of a minority here. I'm not all that excited for Spider-Man, if I'm being honest.
What? No, me either.
I'm not. I'm just not. The game looks great. Don't get me wrong, but I don't know. It looks like more of the same. So for me, it's just like I'll wait for it to go down in price, for it to go on sale.
It's definitely cookie cutter, but it's still going to be a good game.
It
No,
helps if you're like a
100%.
big Spider. If you're a big Spider-Man fan,
Oh, and I love Spider-Man, and
Yeah.
Craven the Hunter's in the game, which is one of my favorite Spider-Man villains. Venom,
both of them
are
are
in
in there.
who's my favorite villain. So like you
and
would
Killer
think
Croc.
Killer Croc is from Batman.
ooh,
I mean,
oh my god,
So,
oh my god,
I
oh
think you're
no,
thinking
lizard.
of the
The
lizard.
lizard.
Yes.
Oh, no.
I redeemed myself, okay?
and the Joker
I
too. I
redeemed
heard he's
myself.
DLC.
Yeah, Batman's in the
Yeah.
game too.
Yeah. don't revoke my nerd card, guys. Don't revoke it. I redeemed myself.
Too late.
But the lizard.
The lizard. I was like, anyway, yeah. So the game looks great, and I'm going to play it, but it's not on my like immediate. I must play it right away list. I think I can. I think I can wait it out on that one. But anyway, back to Armored Core. So for me, the first playthrough, I was playing through it or whatever, and I enjoyed all playthroughs. By the way, there was no down point really. Maybe when I was replaying certain missions, it was like, okay, I'm just doing the same thing over again. But like for the most part, like my first playthrough was very involved, very interesting. I was just like invested in the gameplay and the combat, and just figuring out like what build I want to do and what kind of guns I want to use, and like what works best for certain obstacles, that sort of thing. So that was my first playthrough. And in my first playthrough, I had the Air ending where you fought Air, the chick in your head. That was the first playthrough for me, and then the second playthrough, I got the opposite ending where you fight Walter at the end. And I could say by the second playthrough, I became more interested in the story. I mean, I listened to all the dialogue in the first run, but the second run, I became more intrigued by like the lore and like what was going on and why these factions were fighting and what these different factions kind of stood for and how they interacted with each other. And I was more interested in the characters. Like at the tail end of my first playthrough into my second playthrough, I was more interested in the characters and their background and how they interacted with each other than I was the combat at that point. At that point, I felt like I already achieved a certain level of mastery with the combat. Not that I'm like super good or anything. I'm just like competent at the game. I can beat the game, right? So I mean, that's saying more than a lot of people out there, right?
I would
If
say
you look
you're
at
really
the achievement
confident.
list, 50% of people drop off at the fucking watch point. But anyway, that's not what this conversation is about. But anyway, after that point, the story became more of a forefront kind of motivation for me to I wonder what's going to happen. I wonder what this character's reaction is going to be to this decision and that sort of thing. And that doesn't really happen with me all the time. For me, it's more about just the gameplay. But I think because the gameplay loop is so fun and quick, that I'm able to just kind of power through the story, have a good time, and learn something new and the process of doing that. So that I noticed that with me, and then the third playthrough, I just kind of blitzed the story. I didn't, I just kind of skipped everything because I kind of already knew what was going on, and the only things I listened to were like new dialogues and new content. And in my third playthrough, yeah, it was just a blitz. I did it in like a day and a half, right? I actually played and beat it during one of your streams, Esoteric. So
Yeah.
yeah, and I won't talk about the ending. The ending did surprise me, even though it shouldn't have, but it was a surprising like final boss, and I enjoyed it very much. And I look forward, like me playing now after my third playthrough is going to be me trying to unlock all the secrets, finishing up the battle log, trying to S rank everything, and then ultimately getting all the achievements. Well, I'm playing on Xbox, so for me it's achievements. Getting all the achievements for the game, and then maybe dabbling with the online play as well. So Armor Core has a lot of legs for me, even though it's a very short game. You could beat it in like I think 8 hours, maybe even less if you. Well, definitely less if you know what you're doing. But I think for a first playthrough, it can take you from 8 to 12 hours maybe. Even though it took me about 20 hours, but that's because I took my time and I replayed missions and I would go back and try to get battle logs and stuff like that because I'm a completionist at heart. So, um, but I love the game. It's not for everybody. It is more of a combat focused game. It is not a story driven game per se. There is a story, but it is not at the forefront. Much like other From Software games, their story does take a backseat to the game. Um, But yeah, I can continue to gush, but I'll let you guys go. I've been already talking for over 5 minutes, so I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, I guess I'll go next. Yeah, I kind of fit the same mold you were in, Kong, pertaining to the game. Like my first playthrough, I was on the struggle bus, and like I wasn't paying much to the story because my mind was so much fixated on getting better. So I kind of equate it to like driving, because when you drive initially, you're very like cognizant of everything that you're doing, and you're like super attentive and aware, because it's your first time driving. You don't want to mess things up. It's a very like high risk, high reward type of deal, right? So the better you at mastering driving is the more like it becomes subconscious. Like you're doing it to the point where you're not even thinking about it. It just becomes like through repetition, it just becomes second nature. And you tend to utilize that brain activity that you were using to be cognizant of driving, and kind of process other things that are going on, i.e. having conversations, listening to the radio, just using that brain capacity just to focus on other stuff. That's how I felt with Armor Core 6. So the first playthrough, it was focusing on the maneuverability, the gameplay, how my Armor Core functioned, what is its advantages and disadvantages, and so on and so forth. Getting past certain enemies. Um, and then by the second playthrough, it was the story for me because I was so assimilated with my mech that I was able to just do things without even thinking about it. Like I understood the button schemes, I understood like how my mech moved, I understood like the weapons that I decided to stay with, how they worked, what their advantages and disadvantages were. Now, I'm not saying that I was like an expert by then because there were some walls. Air was one of them for me, so I had to like make the necessary adjustments. But overall, it was just second nature, and that's when I started paying attention to the story. The first playthrough, I could not tell you what was going on because aside from like maybe the briefings or whatever. But during the battles where you're hearing the little banter from the different characters and the different factions and whatnot, I couldn't pay attention to that because I was too busy getting my ass kicked. It was like I was like, oh my god, like how I'm gonna pay attention to this guy calling me a vermin when my health is like on a sliver and I have like no med packs, or whatever. So that was the experience for me. Um, and I feel like the game kind of made that pretty intentional because let's say about and this is for me playing like the for like all. I completed the first 2 runs for the 2 stories, and then I'm on the third one. I'm kind of like in the middle, so I kind of got the meat and potatoes of it. I would say like 85% of your reruns to the next story are the same. So you're picking up on certain information that you weren't privy to once you got a better understanding of how to play. You're utilizing again that brain functionality to focus on the banter, what's being said, what Air is telling you, what Walter is telling you during your missions, and so on and so forth. Like, fun fact, I didn't realize how the factions coexisted amongst each other until the third playthrough. I was like, oh, okay, so you have Balaam who's in charge of the Red Guns, and then you have Arquebus who is in charge of the Vespers, and then you have the Liberation Front. And I'm like, oh, okay, so this is all making sense now. And now it made me more it made me pay more attention to the missions that I decided to pick. Um, so yeah, just pretty much essentially, I was following the same kind of process that you were going through, Kong, pertaining to the game. Like it was fun. I felt like they did it intentional in terms of like, okay, your first playthrough is going to be a little rough, but as you get to the next playthrough, it's going to be kind of like a little bit towards smooth sailing. And by the third playthrough, with certain hindrances, because there are new missions that you acquire that kind of scales to your build and all the stuff that you have now, it's like, okay, now I'm paying even more attention to the story. So yeah, I agree. I had the same kind of experience. What about you, Gunna?
Uh, okay. So out of this group, I have done the least amount of playthroughs. I beaten the game. I did initial playthrough. I got the air ending where I simped for my waifu and she told me to kill Carla, so I was like, the bitch gotta go. So I got that ending, and it kind of it did much like Kong. It kind of got me interested in the story because like when you first meet Air, it's when you get caught up in a coral surge, and then
Hmm.
all of a sudden there's a chick talking in your head, and I'm
Hmm.
like thinking, did she hack my comms? How does Walter not know? Like, who is this chick? And then like finding out who she was got me interested in the story, and I'm like, I'm watching you play through the game again, Esoteric. So I'm kind of seeing that through your playthrough because I'm playing other stuff, and I will come back to Armored Core later because
Yeah.
it is a very good game. So like
Hmm.
the story is very interesting, and I keep talking about this in like our private chats, but I love how the community for Armored Core is so invested in the characters, and yet these characters don't have a face, they don't have a body, you don't see any of them, but yet there's so much like lore, fan lore, official lore, all these memes and images. I just find that really cool, and I don't find that coming out of a lot of other games that's not manufactured. Like they'll build a lot of manufactured hype and a lot of paid. I'm gonna be pretty blunt. A lot of paid shills are going like, "Oh my god, that was so. This was the greatest moment in the game." But you don't see a lot of that from Armored Core. A lot of that is a lot from the fans and their genuine love for the. So I really like that. You don't see a lot of games like that, especially in 2023. So to have a game like Armored Core kind of bring out that old school kind of love for a game it's great to see. But back to the actual game. I mean, it's a great game. As far as mech games go, we don't get a lot of them. There aren't a lot of good mech games. This one is kind of like the in this current time frame we're in, kind of the pinnacle of mech game. It's tons of fun, tons
Agreed.
of customization. Right, yeah, tons of customization, both customizing your armored core, customizing your emblems, your decals, the parts. Obviously, there are meta games. We all know about the needle guns. Like we get that. But there's also plenty of fun like shoulder weapons. Like I want to make a build where it uses the funnels because there are funnels in the game. Bandai Namco, Gundam Heritage. So, there's tons of fun to play around with that. And The game is short. Like Kong said, it's like around roughly 8, maybe longer if you watch all the cutscenes and whatnot. But I think that's a good thing, right? A lot of games kind of nowadays correlate quality to game length, and I think that leads to a lot of bloated games that ran their course hours ago, but just keep trudging along because I gotta hit that 50-hour mark. I gotta
Yeah.
hit that 30-hour mark. Armored Core is like, no, no. Our game is 8 hours, but you are playing the video game for all of those 8 hours. You're always playing a game. And I respect that because it feels like I got my money's worth, respecting my time. And, if you only want to do one, I think it's still worth the $60. But if you want to do all three to get the full breadth of the story, well, then that pays for itself more than a lot of these $70. So, yeah, I said a lot, but, as the guy who has the least amount out of this group, I still say it's a great game, worth your purchase, and I'm looking forward to coming back to kind of fucking around with different builds. Maybe getting trophies for the game. And I'm a guy who doesn't care about trophies at all. But Armor Core is one of those few games for me that's fun enough that I'll take a look at the trophies and I'll go, you know what, maybe I'll give this a run. Maybe let me try to S rank all missions. Let me see how good I am. So yeah, I mean, phenomenal game. Phenomenal game. Uh, Not that you should gauge your metrics by game of the year. I don't think Armored Core is going to win it, but it's one of the game of the years, personally speaking. Um, and if you like mech games, Gundam, this is a no-brainer to check out, pretty much.
Yeah, I can absolutely agree with everything you just said there. And I would say like to kind of add to your perspective on the trophies, like or the achievements, whichever platform you're on. Um, there each trophy has kind of like an incentive, right? So like you'll have some trophies that are tied to the story. You have some trophies that are tied to you acquiring certain items or collecting all items. And when you collect all those items, they help with your build that you can utilize for like multiplayer combat and whatnot. And then you have uh, other trophies or achievements that are tied to the story. You have some that are also tied to uh, 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 certain decisions you make, and also based on your skill level. So they're all very interesting trophies. I think the most boring one would be collecting everything because there is a playthrough redundancy of certain stages. Like it's like, oh my god, I gotta go through the stage all over again and blah blah blah. But for the most part, the game is just it's short enough and it's fun enough for you to want to keep doing that over and over again. Maybe speed running through with different builds, trying to see how fast you could take out a boss. Um, there's certain like things that you probably missed out on because the stages are so compact yet massive, if that make any sense. Like there's a lot that's going on in the blink of an eye, but there's also so much information to take in at the same time that, for the first playthrough you tend to get overwhelmed. But as you're playing more and more and more, there's new things that you see. Like my second playthrough, I saw a couple of things that I didn't notice the first playthrough, and they were like right in front of me, but I was too busy trying to survive. So
Yeah.
the game is phenomenal game. I agree with the whole game of the year. There's a couple of for me, there's a couple of other like runners that I think will overtake it, but I still think it's worth being a nominee. It's worth getting that recognition. If From Software pulls it off again, that's kudos to them because last year they got recognition and won. So with that being said, yeah, that's wonderful. I'm looking forward to maybe some potential DLC or some like new after the whole like true ending. Maybe there's some new players on the field that want to do something else with Rubicon or whatever. Who knows? Like they can do so much with the game. Um that the possibilities are potentially endless, you know. But yeah, I kind of like rambled on there. I'll speak more once you guys get some more
It's all good, man. So this
talking.
podcast topic is more just us kind of rambling about the game, just gushing about the game, and hopefully those listening, people who are either A, interested in trying Armor Core and maybe just want to hear about it, or B, have played Armor Core and just want to hear people talk about it. So, I mean, I'm guilty of that. There are games that I play that like, oh man, I really want to talk about this game, but I have nobody to talk
True.
to about it. So I'll
Yeah,
watch a YouTube podcast about whatever game it is, and I'll get my fix that way, and I'll like either agree or disagree with what the panelists are saying. So this podcast is for those people who just want to hear guys talk about Armor Core from a casual perspective, right? Like we're not pro gamers or anything like that, or sponsored, or no. We're just
No,
normal
definitely.
gamers, just who play the
yeah,
game and enjoy the game. That's it. So to take it back to Armor Core, I think I think the magic, and it's hard for me to pinpoint exactly how this all works, but like there are certain games that have like um they strike a perfect balance between somehow being challenging the first playthrough, but then becoming easy to play through, but super fun to put, like super hard to put down and super fun to play through. And so you kind of play these games over and over and over and over and over again. Games like this are Resident Evil, for example. Like classic Resident Evil games kind of fit that mold, where your first playthrough of Resident Evil is always going to be a head scratcher. It's like, fuck, where does this key go? Where does this? How do I get this weapon? And the then you play for the second, third, fourth, fifth time. You're like, oh, I know exactly where everything is. But the gameplay loop is so fun that it's just like, I'm just gonna, yeah, I'm just gonna run through Resident Evil real quick.
Yeah.
You know, another game that's like that is games like older Castlevania games. Super Castlevania 4 comes to mind, right? Esoteric, me and Esoteric are big Castlevania fans, at least of the old school Castlevania. I'm talking, Nintendo, Super Nintendo era, maybe right before Symphony of the Night. Those Castlevania games where it was less about, well, there was no RPG elements. Maybe
well,
with the
Simon's
exception of
Quest
Simon's
was,
Quest, but
yeah,
like I'm talking about the other ones, the more traditional Castlevanias, where it's just you have
side
your
scrolling.
character, your weapon, and then you get sub weapons. That is it, right? Those games are, especially Castlevania 4, Super Castlevania 4. Um, that game is super easy to just play and just okay, I'm done. Right? You even had a stream not too long ago where you were just playing through it
Yeah,
just for the hell of it, right? No real purpose or goal in mind. It was just like I just want to play Castlevania 4. And so games like that kind of have that effect, and they're just easy to play through versus something that's more modern, like also good games, but good games for a different reason. If you want to replay like Ghost of Tsushima or The Last of Us or God of War or Spider-Man 2018, like these are games that you could go back and play, but the gameplay loop isn't welcoming to replayability because there's so
yeah,
much padding on a game like that it's just like it feels like a chore playing through a game like that all
yeah.
over again versus something like Armor Core. You could just blaze through it because you have the legacy skill, you know what you're doing, you just plow through the game. Same thing with like Resident
Yeah.
Evil.
Yes, especially if time is a factor. Like if for those of you who are working class citizens and or going to school, basically have a chunk of your day taken away from you. It's much more easily digestible to pick up Armor Core because it's basically get through the mission and then the next story comes in where it's like get through the other mission. Here's your briefing. Here's what's going down. You decide whether you want to do it or not. With Spider-Man and all those other games you mentioned, it's okay, well, in order for me to get to this boss that's a part of the story, I have to do A, B, and C. And then
Yeah.
once I get to that boss, he's gonna go to another place, and then I have to do D, E, F, and so on and so forth. So it's not
It's
as
just way
digestible.
too much, right? It's hard to digest. It's like, what's a good analogy? It's like if we use food for an analogy, it's like having a snack that fills you up, but it doesn't take too much like effort or time, versus eating like shelled seafood or something like king crabs,
Yeah.
where you gotta break the thing open and dig around for the meat. Like that's mad work, bro. Like it's good, but that's like Jesus Christ. I just want to eat something, right? So that's what Armor Core or games like Armor Core or Resident Evil are like, where it's just like these are really like digestible games that are you could just go and play, and it's not like a mobile game where it's just like super fast and it's designed to be like this quick experience. It can be a long experience if you want it to be. That's the beauty of it, because the gameplay loop, there was so much thought put behind the gameplay loop that the game just falls into that category where it's just super replayable and super fun, right? And
Yeah.
that has gotten lost in modern development for games, especially in the AAA side. If you look at something that like the new Assassin's Creed games, Assassin's Creed Mirage, which hasn't come out yet as of the recording of this podcast, it's about I'd say 2 weeks away. That game, one of its selling points is we're taking it back to the roots. It's a game that you don't have to invest 50 hours into. It's a game you could beat in a week. You know, if you it's a game for adults who have a life or whatever, right? That it was the opposite before, where a selling point would be like this game is massive and it takes 50 hours to finish, and
Yeah,
you
yeah, that
know,
actually,
and
yeah.
it's funny how things kind of revert back to like how it was, where games were just games. It was about the fun factor, it was about it being playable, and it wasn't about, oh, a game's value is determined by its playtime, or its forced playtime I should say, with padding and like side missions that you have to do and all this other bullshit. A game can be short and can be fun and can be replayable. That can exist in one game. It's up to the designers to figure out what that combination is, right? And I think
Yeah.
Armor Core nails it. So
Yeah, and I don't want the viewers to think, well, I got to speak for myself. I don't want them to get it misconstrued. Like the games that we mentioned that has like padding, like God of War, Horizon,
and by
they
God of War we
were
mean new God of War
yeah,
2018
Newton,
and
yeah,
2022.
yeah, they were relatively good games. But if I wanted to actually say, what game should I want to do? I want to replay it. God of War would not be the first on the list simply because I know that there's new games that I want to play that are coming out, which some consist of padding and some consist of like, okay, well, I can just play and get through. But for the most part, they mostly consist of padding and they're very time extensive. But games like Armor Core, Super, not Super Metroid. Well, Super Metroid is one of them, but I was thinking more of Metroid Dread because the first playthrough of Metroid Dread, if you don't know where to go, it can be a little time consuming. But once you beat it and then you remember where everything is, it's it becomes even faster. Like the average time for Metroid Dread is about maybe 8 hours total, and then you could probably shave that down to 6 for your next playthrough, and maybe even shave it down to 4 if you're that skilled and you remember where everything is, and you're not trying to complete everything. Maybe it is possible. Who knows? But yeah, I don't know. I think what makes Armor Core super playable, like replayable, is the fact that everything happens so quickly. Like you're always on the move. You're always on the move. You get little cutscenes and whatnot, but those last for like maybe I would say the longest one was like maybe 3 minutes. That was it, and then you're just right back into the game, if not shorter. You know, and and like I'm a mech head. I love mechs. I love machines and stuff like that, and just seeing everything happening so fast and just flying through the different areas and just blowing shit up, like that is a great game, you know. I mean, think about like Contra, think about Metal Slug, like they pretty much had all of that in there. You was in a big ass tank, you was blowing shit up, you were just getting from point A to point B. They gave you a little bit of story dialogue and that was it, and then you was like, oh, play it again. um I don't know if it's. I mean, I know a part of it is that it's a great game, but I don't know if the other part is that I'm just being a old man and I'm very nostalgic driven, and that was the formula for games back then. But either way, it still works. I think the formula just works. Just
Yeah,
give us
I mean,
more of those from time to time. That's all I'm
it,
saying.
it I think it could be that. And I think we could. It's a big reason. It's probably a lot of us just like not every game has to be a 500-hour experience, and
Yeah,
that kind of game has been lost, mostly lost, with the exceptions of games like Armored Core and Resident Evil, where it's just like it has to be this giant cinematic story experience with a million little side tangents and a little million, little side paths you could take. And not every game has to be like that. Armor Core kind of feels like an arcade game, like an old arcade game where
Yeah.
it's just like, I want to play a little bit of Armor Core. I want to, mess around with some mechs, maybe try out this new setup. Maybe I'll go with a spider leg build this time. Maybe I'll go a tank build. Maybe I'll go all kinetic, all energy, maybe I'll do all melee. I don't know, whatever you want to do. And then it's like, all right, I played like an hour, 2 hours. It's like, okay, you know what? I'm good. Let me go do something else. And then when you got that mech itch, Armor Core will be there, and it'll be familiar, and you won't have to. It's not like picking up a game when you're 20 hours in and you stop playing for like 2 months,
Yeah.
and then you come back and you're like, what the fuck was I doing? Like, why do I have this armor on? Why am I using this magic? What was I trying to achieve? And then you might feel compelled to start over again because you're lost and you don't know what's going on. With Armor Core, it's just like, oh, that's right. I just beat Air again. Okay, so now we're on new plus 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 plus. Okay, cool. So now let me side with Air in this mission, in this playthrough. And I want to, you know what? I want to do a build that's all missing. And then you just do it. So I think it's the immense replayability of Armor Core that makes it such an enjoyable. One of the reasons it's such an enjoyable, and
Yeah.
that's lost in modern games.
Yeah, I hear you, Gunner, and it's like all the moving parts that are within Armor Core, i.e., the parts you acquire, the different builds you can make, getting the battle logs, the different storylines, they all encompass into that one theme, which is replayability. So you can just have you could just have one run through where you just want to go through the story because you want to hear certain dialogue again that you didn't catch, or you just want to like collect things, or you want to like just see how well you do with a certain build. It all has this like everything is all pointing to, oh, play me again, and then like the whole term that we have, like easily digestible, like you said, it can be put down, you come back, and the biggest difficulty that you might have is just getting used to the controls, which games like these that brawls me tend to remember the button scheme almost immediately. When it's a absolute good game and it's just nonstop action, like fighting games like this and amongst others, those the whole button schemes get back to me like immediately. Games like this, like Armor Core, the Souls games, some fighting games, I tend to remember those. But when it's a story driven game that padded a lot, it's like, okay, so how do you activate this skill? Was it L2 triangle, or did you have to press down R3 or whatever? It's just so much. It's so much, and the fact that Armor Core doesn't, aside from certain missions, like maybe it was one mission. They don't force you to use anything. You can use whatever you want. That's pretty much it. Like you're not forced to, oh, certain enemies die this way, certain enemies die that way. It's you can use any type of weapon you want, any type of build you want. It's up to you whether how you pilot your mech and whether you're able to take on the disadvantages of the mech to be able to complete the mission. I think that's super important. It's really important.
Yeah, the game gives you full freedom, pretty much, with the exception of one mission, which was the ice worm mission where you had to use a
Yeah.
stun needle. That was the only time, and you only had to use one, right? Like
Yeah.
you
Hmm.
still had your other shoulder ammo if you wanted to use something different.
Yeah.
So I I agree with you 100%. And you said something that was interesting, like the whole muscle memory thing. Like that's so Monster Hunter is one of those games for me too. Like you could I haven't played Monster Hunter. Let me see. Pick one. Try. I haven't played Monster Hunter Try in like since it came out, right?
Yeah.
in over 10 years. If you put the controller in my hand again, it'll take me maybe half a hunt to like get back into that headspace and be like, oh, I remember how this works, right? I
Yep.
remember how to play Hammer in this game. Like, you only get that with games that you have a lot of gameplay with. You don't get a lot of
Yeah.
gameplay with like, the more modern narrative driven games. And that's just the way it is. Like, the more you do something, the more used to it you become. Like, we're adaptable beings. So like, if you look at my Monster Hunter file, right? I played most Monster Hunter games at least 200 hours, right? That's out of that 200 hours, I can say probably easily 180 of those hours was active fighting something,
Yeah.
actively playing the game, not scrolling through menus, not waiting at the loading screen, not, waiting through a cutscene or whatever. No, it's about like, it's hard to measure, right? Unless you record and write down like your times or whatever. But like,
Yeah.
I would reckon to say games like Monster Hunter, games like Resident Evil, games like Armored Core, these games, my playtime, about 95% of my playtime was playtime, and the other 5% is maybe story, or loading screens, or force walk-in chats. Like, modern games do that now, where some important story is happening, and like your character can't run anymore, and now you have to walk and listen
Yeah.
to this other character talk, or whatever the case, right?
Oh yeah.
So yeah, that's become more of a thing. So yeah, that's important. Like, and that plays right into what we were saying before about replayability and the games having a really strong gameplay loop. That's important. And it's not like excuse me, it's not like modern devs don't know that. I'm pretty sure they know that. But I think what affects modern games development now is two things. Number one, everything's corporate now. So everything's about the bottom line, the how profitable this is. This is this is game design. This is game design like gonna generate more money for us. Like, how do we implement a battle pass? How do we implement DLC? Like, they're not thinking about it as a piece of art where it's just like, yeah, how fun can I make this game? Like, that's the fourth question they ask,
Yeah.
right? When
Yeah.
it should be the
Mhm.
first.
Yeah. It's pretty much like with your analogy of art. It's like, oh, uh, let's say you paint the first one. Okay, well, you painted this. It's a masterpiece. Well, how can we copy and paste this? How can we mass produce this? How can we put this
How
in
can
front
I
of
how can I
a
maximize
Xerox
the
machine?
value of this painting, right?
Yeah.
Like, if I draw, two naked women instead of one, how much does that increase my profitability of the painting, right? Like, artists don't think that way. Artists think of, well, what's the message? How do I make this look better, more appealing? How do I tell this
Mhm.
story? They're not thinking about how much can I sell this piece for. Maybe some people are, but most true artists don't, right? Whether that be music, dance, game design, or just physically drawing, whatever it may be. They're not asking those questions because they're not business people. They're not, for them. It's not a product. It's a piece of art, right? And that's a very distinct difference. A lot of the people that run these industries or are in decision making positions in these industries are looking at it as a product and not a piece of
Yeah.
art, and that's a
Oh yeah.
big problem.
They're so far removed from the gaming sphere. It's like they can't see their head from their ass. And it's like it's really sad because of the simple fact that a lot of these games, and I know we're going off on a tangent here, but I just have to say this. A lot of games that were masterpieces would not have gotten sequels if it wasn't for the big wigs. They saw how much they made, they saw like how lucrative it was. So all right guys, I know y'all want to make a new game, but this game sold a lot of money. So how can we squeeze in a sequel? A lot of games wouldn't have sequels if it wasn't for that corporate mindset.
True. And I'll take it back to Armor Core. I just wanted to say one more thing.
Yeah.
And then the great example of that in modern times is Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom. That game has no DLC, no battle pass, no online predatory fucking business practice attached to it. It is just a sequel to another Zelda game, and it took about 7 years for it to come out. If this had been an EA game, we would have gotten that game 6 years ago, and it would have been a
Six
fucking
times.
Yeah, we would have gotten sequels every year since then, and every game would have been the same bullshit, and it would have been even worse, right? Even though some people out there think, oh, they think Zelda, they go, it's the same game, but it's just a few extra features. Not exactly. I see what you're saying, but like, not really. There's a lot. There's a lot of new. The game is built. It is a new game, right? Just because it's the same kingdom of Hyrule doesn't mean it's the same exact. Like it's not. But anyway, I'm not gonna get too deep into that. But anyway, to take it back to Armor Core, um, I think one of my I'll speak about some of the flaws I think, or not flaws, but things I wish they had more of, and that's big boss battles. So one of my favorite parts of the game were the large scale boss battles. The furnace, the juggernaut, the Strider, the cataphract, which you got in your second playthrough. Did you fight him?
No, you get him on the first. You get him on the first two.
The cataphract, the guy in the
Yeah, you
yeah.
just in the second playthrough, you just get him a lot sooner, or was it the
Okay.
third? But yeah, he's in a mission by himself.
Yeah, it's
Depending
just
upon
him. Yeah, and
yeah,
then you fight him again later.
yeah,
But yeah, so those missions were a lot of fun. Balteus even like those missions. I know there's a lot of hate for Balteus, right? But amongst the more, I guess, casual players, more casual than us, I guess. But like those boss battles are great, man, and I wish there was more. I wish it was just more content. Quite frankly, I beat the game 3 times, and I still want to play. I'm still going to, but I just wish there was more new stuff,
I
more
wish there were
new
more
missions to
space
do.
battles, man. That last battle towards when you chose Carla's side, where you had unlimited boosting and you
Oh,
were
you
just
were
flying in and zipping
just
through,
zipping and taking out all those
destroying chips.
battleships. Oh my
I
god,
wish
like
there was
that was a
more of
lot of
that.
fun too. Like taking down those PCA battleships. It's like
Yes.
fuck, man, this is fun. Like shit, I wish there was like more like fleet battles or whatever. That'd be so sick.
Yeah.
But I wish there was more of that. That's one of my criticisms of it. Not enough boss battles for me. But I'm a boss battle like junkie. So for me, it's like that's kind of a personal thing.
Those those boss battles felt just like I don't know if you guys ever played those old school flight games where you see those big airships and you got to blow off certain components,
Mm-hmm.
and it's like either side scrolling or like it's either vertical or horizontal side scrolling, and you got to like dodge all the fire power and all that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
It oh man, it just really tickled my nostalgia. I felt like I was playing a game way back when. Like,
It feels like you ever play Gunstar Heroes on Sega Genesis.
yes, yes,
It reminds me of that a little bit, where it's just like just fucking just blasting shit, right? And then you're just shooting different things, and you get the classic Sega Genesis explosions or whatever. Um,
hmm,
but yeah, that's a real game. You know, like that's just a game, and that's what Armor Core is. Armor Core is a game, full and full, 100%. It is a video game.
Yeah.
It's not a fucking a message behind. No, there's a message, but like it's not about that. It's about gameplay and about the universe that they're creating and about you just having a good experience.
yeah.
Yep. Yep. Also, the music. There's really good music in Armored Core. I know it's hard to hear when you're shooting missiles and screaming, "Fuck!" You're like you died to Balteus 20 fucking times. But Balteus' theme song is actually really good. And there are some others that are really good too. So, I think a soundtrack is helpful in a video game. Maybe less so Armored Core because the focus is um first and foremost the gameplay, as we've said multiple times. But from software also, from their catalog of the Souls games and Sekiro and Bloodborne, they've all had really good music in their own right. Hell, we did a podcast about some of our favorite soundtracks in video games, and I know for sure I mentioned and some Bloodborne and Dark Souls music.
Well, how
So
we did one dedicated to the Souls
yes,
games. It
yeah,
was a whole like
yeah,
2 hour thing.
yeah. So I mean, and that translates to Armor Core. Armor Core does have great music. So if you played Armor Core and you beat it, take a listen to the soundtrack for some of the boss encounters. They're actually really, really
Yeah.
Um,
Hmm.
so I mean, yeah, without retreading ground, I think the boss battles in Armored Core 6 were real fun. I do agree. I do kind of wish there were more bombastic fights. You had the big walking mining robot in like chapter 1 where you had to
Hmm.
take them down in segments. I kind of wish there was
Yeah.
more of that. I remember the boss. I forgot the exact name of it, but it was a PCA boss where it came to you as a jet and then transformed into like a really big armored robot, and it had a
Are you
gun
talking
like
about
a.
the enforcer? Was it the
I
enforcer?
think yeah,
No.
yeah, you go. No, you're right. You're right. In the
Okay.
enforcer, yeah, like really big, kind of beefy, full armored robots like that. I kind of wish there were more of that. Um, as far as the AC battles goes, they did fine with that. You had 2-on-1s, 1-on-1s, 3-on-1s. Those were perfect, right? I wouldn't change those. But I kind of wish for like more big fights, like maybe like a really souped up um Armored Core, or maybe like a Balteus on steroids, something like maybe that would be too much to some people. Maybe that would be over the top, but I would have liked more of that. And I didn't see the whole PCA when you were like kind of in the upper stratosphere of the planet and you
Yeah.
had the infinite boost to take out those. I didn't see that because
That
I
was
didn't do that
amazing.
playthrough.
It
That
it
was
was, oh my god. I felt like I was watching a Gundam show at that point. I was
yeah.
like, this is th- Gundam. I mean, it's the same company, Bandai Namco. They just need to take Gundam robots and just put them in this game, or take from software developers and let them work with Gundams. Like it was perfect. I was I don't know if you guys remember, but that's what I was when I first had my first initial playthrough when I first started. That's what I was hoping for. I was like, I would love to see like space battles. They didn't give me like space battles. They gave me like, borderline
You were
stratosphere.
almost in
But
space. Yeah.
yeah, but I'm not complaining because I got to take advantage of unlimited boosting. I got to take advantage of like just zipping through gunfire, blowing stuff up, jumping from ship to ship, taking on other enemies. Which I must say that I love the fact that everything that the enemies had, there was a possibility for you to acquire, and I'm referring to like the opposing ACs. So if they had like that stupid bubble gun I hate really so much, you can actually use it. Like they were very innovative with the mechs that they came with, and not to mention that they were also very inspiring because it allows you to be like, oh wow, look at how he's using this build. You know what? I'm gonna take that for myself and utilize it as well and see how it fares. Like I don't like Snail. Like I love his character, but I hate him as a opposing uh person. But I love this mech. When you fought Cell 240 and he shot you and kind of
Oh
like
yeah.
he kind of like immobilized you, like his suit looked so sick, and how all the moving components of his gun was kind of reverting back. It's like, oh, listen, man, just go ahead. I just love the goddamn
Hey,
That's
game.
that's
that.
the reason
That's that
why
neck porn.
yeah, that's the reason I like the needle gun so much, because it literally folds out to the cannon, and when you finish the mission, it folds back in. So I was like,
Yeah,
this is so cool. They didn't have to do that. They could have just had it as a static gun that fucking clips through everything, but they didn't. And like
ex-
all the parts look like real machine parts.
yeah. Oh my god. Even with I know I said I was gonna stop talking, but
That's
even
fine. Go for it.
even with the boss battle with Raven, how I was supposed to intercept some ships, and then it was like, oh, somebody already did that, and then you go further into the shoreline, and you just see the Raven standing there, and then you just see him turn around, and you just see his face, and then you just see the shield cover his face, and it's
The
like,
visor.
yeah, the visor, and I was like, oh shit, I was so excited to see him that like I was rooting for him while I was fighting him. I felt so bad, and the fight was just so amazing. And he was using some of he had like a songbird as well, and he was using some other parts that I had, and it was just like he was just duking it out to the death and stuff. And then he had 3 med packs. I had 3 med packs. So it was like a battle of attrition, and he was just going back and forth to see who's gonna beat who. And then for the second playthrough, I didn't even expect him to come. You're fighting King and Chartreuse, and then while you kill one, he's flying towards you and stuff. I'm like, the game is just jam packed with just fun and like, holy shit, what's going on type of deal. Like it was just like it felt like watching WWE, and you didn't expect that character to
The
come
glass
running through.
shatters. It's like, oh my god, it's
Yeah,
Stone Cold.
yeah. It's like, where he came from? Oh my god! You just see Raven just zipping through. It's like, oh, we're gonna see if you're worthy of the name. And I'm like, but I'm fighting already 2 crazy ACs at this moment. Then you got to fight him, who has like, in this point they were fair, but they gave him 2 med packs, and you struggling with the ones you have. It it was just, oh my god! It's just, that game is just so fire
and
of
and
Rubicon.
and back to that mission with the space one, it showed that they can do space combat. I know Armored Core is traditionally a more terrestrial mech based game. I mean, I don't know. I haven't played all of the previous Armored Cores, so maybe there was a space mission. The ones I've played was always been grounded. Like you're on a planet. You. This was the first time I ever saw you go to like almost was full blown space. So who knows? We might see one where they'll dabble with space combat because they showed they can do it. And I
Yeah.
think Armored Core's like the whole maneuverability and the way the game works, I think they can make space combat work.
Oh, absolutely. And another thing that I would love for them to touch on, because they kind of hinted towards it, alien life forms. I know there was one of the missions where you were shooting like little worms that was like eating, I think, coral or something like that. So they kind of hinted towards like having little life forms around. Um, I also would like to, I wish that they would have had absolutely big boss fights, but I would love for them to have just taken place solely on the boss. Like, you start on the stage on a giant boss, and then you're just going through different components. It kind of like the Strider, but more in depth. Because with the Strider, everything was, all the components was on the outside. I wanted to be able to like go inside the mech, tear shit up, come out to like the engine room, blow that up. They kind of sort of
Well,
did
you
it
had
when you
missions like
fought
that when
Snail.
you were in the Xylem. You kind of did
Yeah,
that.
that's what I was saying. When you
Yeah.
fought Snail, they kind of did that, but I wanted like more like with the anatomy of the freaking the Strider, because that mission like really made me pop up when I seen it. I was like, this is Armored Core. This is, I mean,
I
I wouldn't
agree.
know what Armored Core is, but
I agree with. Well, you guys said a lot of stuff that I agree with. So first, I just want to point out to the whole like having these like colossal battles. Like if you did a mission where you fought the Xylem head on, but let's say Carla took it over or whatever, and you decided no, we can't do it. We can't use this weapon or whatever.
Mhm.
And you had there was a mission where you start and you're just face to face with the Xylem ship, and you just kind of boost toward
Oh
it
my
and just
god.
taking it down bit by bit, and like they split it up into missions like they did with the depths, where the depths is like 3 different
Yeah.
missions. They did
Yeah.
something like that. That would have been sick, and then more of missions like that would be very welcomed. I would just say. So that's one. Two. To go back to the music, it's funny. I watched a streamer play it, and he was complaining that there was no music. That's because he didn't get that far. Like I think he didn't even make it to Balteus. So like he was like, "There's like no fucking music." And in the beginning stages, there really isn't. It's just the sound of like the boosters and like the gunshots or whatever. You don't get the music until it's more meaningful in the game, to where you're having like real crazy encounters and like story stuff is happening. So that is a complaint. Like we say the music is good because we've played through the entire game, whereas somebody who maybe is a little more casual and just plays that first like 10% of the game, they don't have the same. They're like, what music? There was no music in the game.
No,
So
the music is there. I just think, again, going back to my
it takes a bad
analogy about
seat.
about driving. Yeah, but that's because you're so attentive at staying alive, and you don't fully understand the controls as to why you're not really allocating that brain functionality to listening to the music, because there's been games
in the
where
beginning, some of the beginning missions, there's literally no music.
really I gotta play
Yeah,
back.
yeah.
I
There's
gotta play
because
back.
I watched a stream of it. He was like, "There's like no music. There's
Mm.
ambience, but like there's no like music. There's no beat or anything."
Okay, I
So
see what you're saying.
that
Yeah.
that would
Okay.
be that would be something that I think From Software would have to maybe remember. Like, okay, well maybe let's make so like if we look back at like Ghouls and Ghosts, right? The beginnings, the first stage song is so memorable because everybody's played it. Whether you beat it or not, whether you got to stage two, everybody knows the first fucking stage song. Everybody knows. Same
Hmm.
thing with Castlevania. Everybody knows fucking Vampire Killer. Like it's like, oh, okay,
Yeah.
that's Castlevania, right? So that's something that they might have to like think of because while I love From Software, I don't think they're perfect. I think
Yeah.
they do miss the mark on certain things, like UI design, for example, with the Dark Souls games. I think that could use some work, but like I'm willing to deal with it because I know under all those like miniature flaws, there's a great fucking game. So like I'm
Yeah.
willing to just tread through a little bit of bullshit to get to like the good stuff. Um, damn it, I forgot my third point. I kind of lost it, but I'll let you guys kind of continue on. If you have any like final thoughts?
Okay, I guess I'll give my final thoughts. I mean, what can be said that hasn't been said already? I mean, if you're a fan of mech games, this is a no-brainer. Who knows when we're gonna get another mech game of this quality? I'm not saying mech games don't come out a lot. They do to a certain degree. They are a super like niche series, but they do come out. But this is just such a high quality mech game that, in my opinion, you'd be a little foolish to not check this out and not consider it. And this is a $60 game, even on current gen PS5 and Xbox. This is still a $60 game in a world where game companies are demanding $70 or $80 for a video game. You can't beat that price. I mean, if you're unsure about it, it will go on sale. I'm not saying it's not Pokemon, right? It will go on sale. Check it out when it's on sale. Like you get it for $50. I think that's a steal. So definitely check it out. Check it out then. It is a challenging game. They, as of currently, they've released patches where they have modified bosses. Call it a nerf if you want, but they've toned down like Balteus, which was a big obstacle for a lot of people. So maybe like if you played and Balteus was too much to you, come back. Check it out now. He might be manageable because there's so much more after Balteus that you're really depriving yourself of a great mech game. So TLDR, if you get anything out of that, definitely check out Armor Core. Give it another chance if you dropped it. If mech games aren't for you, then hey, they're not for everybody. It's not everybody's cup of tea. So no harm, no foul. But I mean, in a world deprived of mech games, From Software definitely gave us something that I'll probably keep going back to multiple times every year, just to get a fix, just to get a little bit of mech game, and that's not a bad thing.
Oh yeah. I mean, everything what Gunna said, like, rings true. I'm not gonna regurgitate all of that because he said it well. The only thing that I'm gonna add to that is that I'm really excited that I was able to acquire the game. I visited Armor Core during its fourth iteration, and it didn't, bode well with me because I think I was too inexperienced in engineering to get my goddamn robot out of the garage
Hmm.
because it was really difficult for me. And then it kind of just fell off. I didn't know that there was a four answer. I didn't know that there was a five. And I had no expectations of a six coming out. But I've always had an interest in playing Armor Core. It's just the one that I got into, I just didn't really understand. So this one, being older, understanding it, overcoming the difficulty, is definitely worth it. It can be a little overwhelming for those of you who are not into these type of games because there's a lot of things you have to look out, a lot of moving parts. i.e., you're understanding your mech, understanding how it maneuvers, understanding how the enemies work, understanding your build, the stats of each build and whatnot. But once you get it down pack, it becomes a very enjoyable, very rewarding game. Overcoming these obstacles, it feels like a weight has been lifted off your shoulders, and you feel at least I can speak for myself, such an overwhelming sense of accomplishment. I'm really excited that I acquired the biggest version of the game, which was the premium version. Every time I walk past my figure of the garage and the tenderfoot, like I just smile because it reminds me of such an exciting experience I'm having with this game, and I definitely will be playing it tomorrow to see the conclusion of. Well, at the time of this recording, I'm going to be playing um, to see the conclusion of what happens in the story. I'm really looking forward to it, and I hope you guys give it the shot that it definitely, truly deserves.
I agree. So real quick, my final thought. I can't remember the third point I wanted to
Damn.
make. That's why I gotta remember. I gotta write things down. But anyway, um, I recently got into like the Gundam, animated franchise. Just by it started with buying one Gunpla out of curiosity, and then that just kind of like bubbled up, and then became oh, Gundam's pretty cool. And then I watched the 1979 Gundam, and I watched some other stuff, and I'm still working my way through that. It's a lot of content to get through, but that kind of created like this whole like robot thing, and I've always liked robots, but I just never really dove into these particular franchises. And Armored Core has always been a franchise I've been interested in, even during the PS2 era. Especially during the PS2 era, I just never dove in for whatever reason. And I did play Armored Core 5. I did finish that game, so I did have some experience with it. So I knew that this would be a game I would definitely want to get and play and enjoy, which has not disappointed, obviously. Um, and I've found myself kind of going back and trying to buy all these different mech games. So I just bought an Xbox, original Xbox, and Gunnar was with me at the game store, and I saw some game, Mech Warrior or Mech Assault. That's what it was, and I was like, don't know what it is, but they got mechs, so I'm immediately interested. And I looked up some gameplay, and it looked like a competent Gen 6 mech game. So I have that, and I also bought most of the Gundam games on PS2. I bought every Transformer game on PS3 and 360, as well as PS2. I have them all lined up. So like I'm just buying all of these robot games, and it's become this ridiculous thing. And I'm also building Gunpla on the side too. I haven't built one in a while, which I plan to change now that I have like a new setup for them to display them. At some point I was afraid to build more because I was running out of space, but now I'm manufacturing more space, so now I'm gonna get back into that.
Hope they
Uh,
make. I hope they make some because it's Bandai Namco. I hope they make some kits for
so I
Armor
looked
Core.
into it. Kotobukiya owns the license to Armor Core model kits, and they're doing reprints next year.
Oh my god. Okay.
So
Okay.
2024 quarter one or quarter two, they're going to be reprints of like Armor Core 5 mechs, and I think they're going to
Okay.
test the waters, see what the interest levels look like, and if that's successful enough for Kotobukiya, maybe they'll do Armor Core 6 stuff. So
Okay.
I'll be buying a bunch of
All
those
right, be on the
kits.
Okay.
lookout.
Okay.
Be on the lookout for that. I will send you the links. Don't worry, if I find them. And
Please do. Please do.
we'll do. But anyway, I say all of that to basically get to Armor Core 6 is a fantastic game. I think it's a true video game. I think it does respect your time. It does respect you as a player as far as like presenting legitimate challenges and legitimate solutions. It doesn't do the whole I hate this in video games where like you're failing a bunch and it's like, do you want to lower to easy mode? Like, fuck you. All right, don't ever say that to me again.
Oh,
Video
your
game.
the character literally reveals the solution to the puzzle
Or
by
that,
talking
like,
to themselves.
maybe you should try using the bubble gun. Maybe you should shut
God.
the fuck up.
Yeah.
Oh my
I
god.
hate when games do that, and I know why they do it, and I get it, and it's useful for some people out there who are truly stumped and don't have like the gamer air quotes gamer pride of I gotta beat this way or whatever. Unfortunately, we all suffer from that. At least me to a certain degree. And I think Esoteric. I think Gunner, you've that ship has sailed for you a long time ago. You metagame the shit out of any game.
Oh yeah, no. I'll research. I'll research more than play the actual video game.
Which, hey, he's a Zimmerman boy. Let's put it that way. I don't like the Zimmermans personally, but that's okay. I know that they're the best gun in the game. But anyway, I'm definitely on the mech train, the robot train, whatever you want to call it. I will be playing Armored Core for the rest of the year. There's nothing else really sticking out to me. No. So it'll be just Armored Core and whatever other games might pique my interest. And I definitely recommend it. I think you should try it. And if you see it on sale for like 30, $40, that is an absolute.
Yeah.
Definitely recommend grabbing it for sure. But yeah, with that being said, like the video if you enjoyed our conversation. Dislike if you didn't. Comment down below. Let us know what you think about Armored Core 6, or if you're an old Armored Core guy, if you're like a legacy guy, tell us your opinions on like how this stacks up to older Armored Core games and what changes you'd like to see in future iterations, or what features you would like to see come back, or whatever that looks like. We'd love to hear from you. Subscribe for more content. We do podcasts every Wednesday at 12 p.m. Eastern. That's when they publish, and we talk about a variety of things from opinion pieces like this one to like modern gaming news to just chit chatting about OSTs in video games, or top 5 games of all time, or top controllers of all time. We just tier list, like we talk about a bunch of bullshit. So if you're interested in listening to conversations like that, when in regards to gaming, hey, this is the channel for you. We're past 100 episodes. We plan to do more. So there's a plethora of content, literally over 100 hours of content at this point for you to listen to about our silly little gaming opinions. We also do other videos as well, gameplay videos from our streams, 2-minute reviews as well for various games, as well as shorts if you're interested in that. Check us out on social media. We're on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, and Discord. So those links are down below. Check it out if you're interested. And check out Mr.Esoteric. He streams on the main channel. He streams 2 to 3 times a week. He streams a variety of different games as well, from indie to AAA to retro to party games. He plays it all. So definitely check him out. Give him a follow. Show him some love and pop in the chat. I'll definitely be there. Gunner will be there as well. So we'll see you there hopefully. And we'll see you in the next episode. Take care.
All right.
Take it easy.